Yo, what's going on? It's Drnkie and welcome to Drnkie Indie. In this video, we're setting off to a new land to put down roots and survive the wilds with our review of the Bonfire II Uncharted Shores. The community management colony sim genre is one of my real pleasures and addictions in gaming. The amount of hours I've spent creating cities and building communities for make-believe villagers and then rearranging roads to make the town just look a little bit neater, a little bit more pretty, is more than I would comfortably want to admit and share with people. So when I stumbled upon the Bonfire II Uncharted Shores to review, I was more than excited to spend time with the game world and see what the game has to bring to the genre. By the end of this review, you will have my opinion on enough information to know if you should buy or skip the Bonfire II. If you enjoyed this review while you're watching and you want to give it a thumbs up, it's appreciated. If you like enough of the content here on Drnkie Indie and decided to subscribe to the channel, thank you. It means a lot to me. This is Bonfire II Uncharted Shores, and here is my review. The Bonfire II Uncharted Shores was released onto Steam and iOS August 21st of 2020 from the developer Zigma Games. A follow-up to the original game, the Bonfire II aims to bring the game into 3 dimensions and expand on the casual community simulator that the first one established. You can find the Bonfire II on iOS for $4.99 and on Steam for $11.99. Now let's start with the first category, story. The story of the Bonfire II is fairly light. The game opens up with a small video segment to set the mood of the game and establish the setting for your village. But overall, the story of this game is the story of your village. As you start your game, you begin with a few settlers whose journey of finding food and building shelter and surviving the harrowing night starts to take on a narrative that you become involved in as a player. Deciding that one villager will become your crafter or that another will become a guard at night can immediately endure these characters to you as you follow their path, as they tend to level up or die at the hands of a monster. There is an overall questline that is eventually revealed to you as you get further into the game, but all in all, this quest really underdelivers and feels like an afterthought that the developers tried to squeeze into the game as deadlines came closer and closer. While I don't think that a strong narrative is needed for this genre of game to succeed, far from it actually, what I do think is that giving a tiny bit of narrative makes us feel cheated and that there is more that can be told. In short, giving us nothing would most likely be better than giving us a small amount. So where the story might fall a bit short in giving this game some character, let's move on to something that it absolutely succeeds in. Graphics. One of the first things that immediately drew my attention to this game and made me want to review it was the unique graphics that this game has. While some developers struggle to make games on mobile look appealing on the budgets that they develop with, Zigma Games, on the other hand, found an art style that leans into this reality and uses it as a strength. When you load the Bonfire II, it feels at times like you're opening up a kid's book. I don't know what you call this art style in books specifically, but I know it came around after I was a kid and it's gorgeous. All of the art assets in this game feel like they're cutouts and they're placed on top of each other in this beautiful diorama. The colors in this game are simply beautiful. There has been a push in gaming to add tons of saturation to colors, especially on mobile and even PC games, as a way to attract attention. But with this game, the developers went with an understated muted palette that puts the player at ease and allows you to relax while you play it. I only have a few complaints when it comes to the graphics of the Bonfire II. The building assets in this game do feel a bit too similar to each other just across the board. While there are details in them that tell you what they are and separate them from one another, often I was finding myself searching for the right building to craft an item and having to click multiple buildings until I found the right one. Secondly, I would say that the character models in this game just didn't work for me. They were really close and they followed the art style that the developer was trying to achieve, but when the camera zoomed in too far, I found that the character animations really stuck out like a sore thumb, and it broke this beautifully crafted world where everything just felt like it was put together wonderfully. So this is a unique and a great looking game. Now let's move on and see how it plays in gameplay. In a world where colony simulators have gotten deeper into showing you the stats and micromanaging every tiny aspect of your colony, where is there room for another game to really make a difference in the genre? The Bonfire II tries to answer that challenge by going the opposite direction and simplifying everything. You can see the real influence of this being a mobile-first game in this simplification. Rather than selecting workers to build certain buildings or farm certain trees, simply place a building of the workers go to harvest the necessary resources and build the structure. Similarly, if you need a worker for a certain job, simply click on the associated building and choose a worker from 3 basic stats for that job. The simplification really does work at a certain level and made it so I could jump into the game fairly easily, and I could see it as, for someone who's new to the genre, as a great entry into this world of colony simulators. The Bonfire II is structured around a day and night cycle. During the day, you have workers who are free to harvest, build, and craft anything that the village needs. But once nighttime comes, all the workers return to their homes or to the bonfire in the camp, and your guards wake up to do their night shifts. These guards defend the village from one attack every night at their own risk of death. If the guards fail and the town is ransacked, then the game is actually over. This day and night cycle in theory is great and really adds to the suspense of the game. The nighttime coming is a similar feeling to those who've played Minecraft. But in practice, it just kind of feels tedious after a little bit. The night raids are really not that challenging to your village, and the fact that there's only one attack just kind of leaves you with all this gap time where your characters and your guards just feel like they're doing nothing. It just feels like you're sitting there. It's kind of awkward. Another problem that I feel this game runs into is a bit of bottlenecking when it comes to pacing. To unlock the next set of buildings for you to place in your village, you must assemble the right building first. For example, to unlock the coal mines and to unlock 4 more homes for your villagers to live in, you must first build a bridge. But I don't understand why I had to build the bridge in the first place. This unknown and the discovery of new buildings and pathways can be kind of fun, but honestly, going into it aimlessly lends to you just coming to choke points of discovery where the game feels a bit dull as you collect resources over a few days, and then after that, a flood of new building comes your way after you've collected those right resources to put to use. It wasn't horrible, but it was noticeable to the point that my second playthrough of this game was much more enjoyable to the first. The last bit of gameplay that I have issues with is that at certain points it feels like the game just stops working in a meaningful way. The AI that is used to simplify the game just doesn't do a good enough job time managing your workers when doing the same task. This leads to unavoidable redundancies here for the player, as let's say you have 5 workers and they all had to collect the same exact mixing resources in order to complete a build. There's just too much wasted time in your day, and it really becomes frustrating the further you get into a game. I would say around day 50 of the in-game time is where the game kind of stopped being fun for me and was just more frustrating to watch as a player, and maybe almost check out at times and just kind of hope for the best and hope that my buildings would get done. But that's it for the gameplay. Let's move on to the next category. Sound. The sound design of the Bonfire II is definitely a mixed bag for me. To begin with, there really isn't background music when you're playing. The game starts with it, and it's placed in the game at different spots, but for the most part, it's just you, the sound of nature, and your villagers going out about their jobs. When it first started to dawn on me that there wasn't actually background music while I was playing for the large majority of the game, it did kind of feel a bit jarring. It's what we're used to. Where's it at? But once that feeling has passed, there was this sort of calmness that settled over the game, and it was actually kind of peaceful. The only thing that I could kind of compare it to would be turning off the radio in your car and just driving. You're used to something being on in the background, and once you notice its absence, it kind of leaves you wanting, but give it some time, and it is rather nice. Where the mixed part of this bag comes in for me is literally everything else that I feel is in this game. Taking cues from The Sims, all your villagers straddle the fence of wanting to do what's best for the village, but also trying to live their dream as a mumble rapper who is speaking through a tube. All the sounds of the characters are just mumbled and muffled, and it feels really out of place. The sounds of this game are just up and down in the quality department. Some of the sounds are good, some of them are passing, and some of them just outright don't work for me as a player. But overall, I will say that they found a kind of zen-like medium in this game where it does feel a bit peaceful while you're playing. And with that, let's move on to our final category, replayability. When we started off this review, I let everyone in a little bit on the amount of time I'll actually spend on colony management games. They're really an addiction for me. There's something about the numbers and the perfection of the system that really just does it for my lizard brain. So when thinking about that with the Bonfire II, I try to keep that in mind and have some objectivity about how I would replay this game if I was just a normal, insane person. I played this game north of 8 hours, and once I quote-unquote finished it, I feel like I got my fill. While this casual and simple take on the genre is refreshing, I think it takes away from what makes the genre so good. I restarted the game once about 2 hours into my gameplay, and after finishing up my second run, I just feel like I've done everything the game has for me to offer. There's not much more I can perfect in how I build or how I task my workers because there isn't micromanaging taking place. But there is a part of me that tries to envision myself playing this on my phone as an iOS player. That version of me would probably come back to this game more and play it while I was waiting for an appointment, or if I was stuck behind a huge order while getting a pub sub at the grocery store. There is a time and place for this type of game. I just don't think it would be there on the PC. So depending on that type of person you are, there is some replayability inside of this game, but for me, 1.5 was just about enough. Buy or skip, the Bonfire II. When I look at the gaming industry, and especially indie gaming, I see genres that are filling up with titles that all kind of look like each other. When a studio like Zigma Game comes and takes a different approach on a genre of gaming, I honestly respect it. What they made with the Bonfire II is unique in the space. But a lot of those things that make it unique take away what makes certain games work in the long run. If you're trying to make a decision on the next colony simulator that you want to dig your teeth into, I would skip. The Bonfire II Uncharted Shores. Hey everyone, it's Drnkie. Thank you for checking out my review of The Bonfire II Uncharted Shores. I hope I helped you make a decision on whether or not to buy this game and that I gave you a good representation of what this game actually is. If I did, if you enjoyed this video, maybe think about leaving a thumbs up on it on your way out. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye everyone.